Welcome back everyone to a brand new edition of the Best Solo Carries, where we provide you guys with 3 champions for every single role that are extremely powerful for the current meta. But before we get into it, be sure to check out SkillCapped if you want to truly get better at League of Legends. We're the only service that offers a money-back guarantee if you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using our service. We do this because our service really does work, and if it doesn't work for you, you shouldn't pay. Learn more at the end of this video or click the link in the description below. Making his way back into the top lane, top 3 due to some recent buffs and indirect item changes is Aatrox. 13.17 was very kind to Aatrox as he saw a really nice boost in strength. Versatility of the champion has never been higher as you can adapt super well to each game. Despite Duskblade being nerfed, it's still a viable rush option and can work great into more squishy comps that you can burst out. Into comps that are going to be building more health or resists, then picking up the buffed Gore Drinker is great, again, as it's much harder to make a consistent impact into tankier comps when going for the squishy Duskblade rush. The complete core build when playing into those squishier comps is a Duskblade rush, into Cyrilda's Grudge 2nd and Black Cleaver 3rd. Into more tanks or bruisers, it's Gore Drinker followed by Black Cleaver and Sterix Gage. Matchup wise for Aatrox, Fiora is one meta champion most Aatrox players struggle more against due to her mobility and W, making it difficult for you to land Q, so she's a solid ban. The rune page revolves around Conqueror with Triumph, Tenacity, and Last Stand. Roll with Second Wind and Revitalize for secondaries. If you're Emerald or below right now, there's only one top lane champion you need in order to climb fast, and that champ is Garen. As if Garen wasn't already an incredible low elo stomper, the recent buffs to Stridebreaker in 13.17 have further strengthened that claim. There's actually been so many changes in recent patches that have slowly helped to alleviate Garen's core weakness of being less mobile, making him a much more reliable carry. Back in 13.10, Hullbreaker was given 5% movement speed, which was massive. The new Double Zeal build that we've mentioned in previous videos provides even more movement speed. Finally, more and more players are catching on to the power of Phase Rush on Garen, so the champion has absolutely incredible sticking power right now. A fed Garen running this build and rune setup actually has very little counterplay. Of course, getting fed is the difficult part, so here's a quick tip that you should be laser focused on. Every 23 seconds, your W is off cooldown, and whenever it is up is your window to trade. For those 23 seconds that it's down, you want to be more reserved and do your best to utilize your passive to heal up. After 2 trades with W, you should be able to acquire the health advantage, and after that, if the enemy is in lethal, you should be looking for windows to where you can flash in with Ignite and finish off the kill. It's really impatience that is going to kill your ability to succeed on Garen, as his trading power with W is massive, but you gotta be more respectful when it's down. The matchups that most Garen players are struggling against for the current meta are Darius and Malphite, so either is a good ban option. For countless patches in a row now, this champion has been the most reliable top lane pick, and that champ is Malphite. Mal has become even higher priority over the past patch, with Tryndamere being buffed, as Malphite players are winning over 56% of the time in that matchup, which is absolutely disgusting. Mal holds his own very well into the majority of physical damage top lane fighters. It's just the AP bruisers that are of more trouble. You should always be using your ban on either Mordekaiser or Sylas if you're content on locking in Malphite. When grouping up with Malphite, you always want to be looking for angles to where you can dip into Fog of War. Carrying a control ward on you to know that the brush isn't warded is key as well. For a champion with such incredible team fight like Malphite, you really don't want to be relying on your teleport to get into fights, especially if your team is ahead and you can easily win 5v5s. Getting to that objective early, controlling vision, and looking for picks when the enemy walks in is your bread and butter for closing out games on Malphite. Core build you should be running is an Iceborne Gauntlet Rush into Sunfire Aegis 2nd and a situational tank item 3rd. Run Grasp when you're in melee matchups that you'll be able to trade auto attacks against, and pick up Comet in more difficult melee lanes or into ranged top laners. Making his way into the top 3 for jungle this patch is going to be Nocturne. Noc has been quite the sleeper jungle pick in recent patches, and now that Stridebreaker was buffed in 13.17, people are finally waking up to the champ. A very simple but effective tip to focus on in the mid game with Nocturne is hovering your fed carry. Oftentimes Nocturne players will get their top laner super fed, but then just completely abandon them in the mid game and begin playing towards their weaker bot lane. Play to that strong side and be looking to hover them whenever you have your ultimate available. Instead of using your ban on a specific jungler when playing Nocturne, getting rid of a champion who counters your dive like Rakan or Lulu is a good idea. The standard core build for Nocturne is a Stridebreaker Rush into Black Cleaver 2nd and Death's Dance or Maw 3rd. Run lethal tempo for the Keystone Rune with Triumph, Alacrity, and Coup de Grace. Eyeball Collection and Ultimate Hunter are for secondaries. One of the best pure solo carry junglers you can play right now is Evelynn. The champion just works way too well in solo queue, where her stealth and ability to find catch plays is greatly rewarded. If you got a lane that has some decent CC gank setup, it's so easy to pick up kills level 6 onwards. Even if the enemy is playing safe on their side of the lane, if your teammate can land that CC spell and you follow up with Charm, there's no escaping it. Mid game, it's all about finding catch plays on those enemies that completely forget Evelynn is in the game. There will be so many opportunities where the enemy squishy just pushes up a bit too far, and and it's your job to be there to punish if you want to see the most success on Evelynn. Whenever an objective is coming up, there will often be a moment where the enemy team splits up. The support will try and get vision on the objective, while someone on the enemy team will try to clear out mid-wave by themselves. It's the enemy that is clearing mid by themselves you want to try and find a catch play on, and if you can do this consistently, the wins will pile up. It's the gank-heavy junglers you really need to contain when playing Evelynn, so just using your ban on Jarvan is a great idea right now. Core items you never want to pass up on when playing Evelynn are Rocket Belt and Rabadons. The rune page is Electrocute with Sudden Impact, Eyeball Collection, and Relentless Hunter. Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm are the optimal secondaries. Rounding out the top 3 for jungle in 13.18 is going to be Jarvan. Jarvan is being tagged with a direct nerf this patch, but considering he was just miles ahead of every other jungle in 13.17, we don't see the nerf reducing his relative power level that much. Jarvan was already a top tier jungler even before Spear of Shojin was buffed, so even though Riot's reverting some of the buff from last patch, he's still going to be amazing. 2-item core of Gore and Spear of Shojin is what's making the champion so broken right now. With all the ability haste from Spear, your EQ combo drops to such a short cooldown, which makes your skirmish in the mid game extremely powerful. Jarvan is some of the best hard engage for any jungler, so banning out a champion who can counter this engage like Rakan, or someone that can avoid the engage like Ezreal is a good idea. Due to this hard engage strength, it's very easy to capitalize when you have the numbers advantage. In the mid game, you always want to be paying very close attention to the minimap, and if your team is grouped while the enemy team is someone farming the side wave, being aware of that and punishing instantly is vital. Rune page you should run on Jarvan is Conqueror with Triumph, Alacrity, and Last Stand. Grab Free Boots and Cosmic Insight for secondaries. Moving on to the mid lane solo carries, one champion who's always been super sleeper that we just cannot ignore right now is Tryndamere. Trynd mid has always had some pretty good viability, but after those 13.17 buffs, he's become a bit over the top. Riot is toning the champion down a tad for 13.18, but that's not really going to matter. Tryndamere mid plays extremely well into the majority of the squishy mid lane champs. What you really want to key in on during the laning phase is letting the enemy shove into you. Don't hard push the wave level 1 and level 2, because at level 3, it's ideal if the wave is on your side of the lane. We have multiple courses dedicated to mid lane wave control on our website that can really help you out if you want a more in-depth look at this concept. What makes Trynd especially good into skill shot reliant mids is that he can use his E aggressively to dodge the spell, and then begin wailing away at the enemy while they have no damage to return. For example, Zed is Tryndamere's most common matchup right now, and if Zed ever tries to W for poke, instead of backing away or using E backward to dodge the Qs, you can E in aggressively to the side to dodge the damage, and then begin autoing to win the extended trade. Level 6 just becomes extremely easy because you can just straight up dive a lot of squishy mids if you can take one good trade prior and get them chunked. One champ that can be more annoying to play into due to her range and self-peel power is Tristana, so she's a respectable ban. Core build for Tryndamere mid is a Stridebreaker Rush into Kraken Slayer 2nd and Hullbreaker 3rd. Lethal Tempo is the Keystone rune with Triumph, Tenacity, and Last Stand. Grab Second Wind and Unflinching for secondaries. Back in the top 3 for mid lane for a second patch in a row is Vex. As if Vex wasn't already a great pick into those melee mids with mobility, the W buffs from 13.17 has given her even more strength. Right now, Vex is winning over 53% of the time into LeBlanc, Yone, Akali, Yasuo, Sylas, and Katarina, which is incredible. Whenever you have W up, it's extremely difficult for melee mids to trade into you, so all you've got to do in those matchups is play off the spell's cooldown and you're golden. If W is down, you can just play a bit further back and land poke with Q and E, but when it's up, you can be more aggro, fishing for autos when the enemy goes for last hits. To really master your trading and get the most out of Vex, we have multiple courses on our website that can help you out tremendously. Matchups you more so want to avoid when picking Vex are the longer range mages, so banning out Syndra or Lux is good value. The optimal core build for Vex is a Luden's Rush into Shadowflame 2nd and Zanya's or Rabadon's 3rd. Electrocute is the best Keystone rune with Taste of Blood, Eyeball Collection, and Ultimate Hunter. Roll with Mana Flow and Transcendence for secondaries. A mid lane champ who has very quietly made his way back into a great spot over the past few patches is Kassadin. And we say quietly quite literally because Riot didn't even notify anyone that they buffed Kassadin's ultimate AP ratio back in 13.15. Mid to late game power of Cass is even more ridiculous now, so if you can just find a way to get past the early game, he's incredibly strong. The only meta matchups that Kassadin currently has a negative win rate against are Zed and Tristana. Zed is the higher play rate right now, but Trist is arguably more annoying, so it's a tough choice on who to ban, but you should definitely be choosing one of them. Adapting your rune page and starting items on Kassadin can really help you out based on the matchup. Against a pokey range champ like LeBlanc or Syndra, you can run the holy trinity of Fleet Footwork, Second Wind, and Doran's Shield to help you get past the first few levels. In easier matchups, especially against AP assassins like Katarina and Echo, running Dark Seal start and taking a more aggressive rune page with Electrocute can work wonders. The standard core build for Kassadin is a Rod of Ages Rush into Archangel's 2nd and Zanya's or Rabadon's 3rd. An ADC on the rise for 13.18 and making his first appearance in the top 3 in a while is Jhin. Jhin, being one of the few champions who still build Stormrazor as a core item, will be loved loving the buff. Jhin is one of the more unique ADCs when it comes down to his options for starting items. Doran's Blade, Longsword, and Boots are all viable, so when should you look to run one or the other? If you're laning against a skill shot reliant support who's also got poke like Lux, Zyra, or Xerath, going for Boots with 4 potions is very useful. If you think of it like this, movement speed is a sort of resist in itself, because if you can just dodge those champions' spells, you're not going to be taking any damage. As for the Longsword or Doran's start, Longsword is going to work amazing if you're in an easy lane where the enemy has low kill threat, say an Ezreal Yuumi lane or a Twitch with Braum lane. You can easily get away with starting Longsword. Into a more aggro duo like Xayah Rakan or Lucian Nami, taking the Doran's Blade for more health to avoid being all-in works great. Core build to run on Jhin is a Stormrazor Rush, into Gale Force second, and Rapid Fire Cannon third. Take Fleet Footwork for the Keystone Rune with Presence of Mind, Bloodline, and Coup de Grace. Celerity and Gathering Storm are the way to go for secondaries. With so many ADCs tagged with the static shift nerfs this patch, along with direct nerfs to Xayah, one champ to really watch out for is Nilah. Nilah has been an exceptionally strong performer in recent patches and will only become better moving forward. Nilah's ability to make plays happen on her own, especially at level 6, gives her so much agency over how games play out. With most ADCs, you're super reliant on your support to go in and make the first move, but Nilah can do it all by herself. Since Nilah W completely negates the enemy's auto attack damage for 2.25 seconds, it makes her quick burst all-in plays at level 6 extremely lethal. Cannon waves are generally where you're going to find the best opportunities to look for these all-in plays. Enemy ADC is not going to want to give up cannons, so if you can time your engage around when the enemy will be last hitting the cannon, it's going to make your engage plays way more consistent. Due to her longer range, ability to poke you out in lane, and high presence in meta, using your ban on Ashe is a good idea. Core build for Nilah is super unique and something we don't see on any other ADC, as it's a Collector Rush into Quick Blade second and Immortal Shield Bow third. The rune page is Conqueror with Triumph, Bloodline, and Last Stand, followed by Sudden Impact and Treasure Hunter for secondaries. Quite the shocker that Ashe avoids the nerf bat for 13.18, so she's back in the top 3 once again. Due to so many other ADCs dropping in power this patch, it's going to put even more priority on Ashe and will solidify her as the #1 option. Diving into some advanced analytics on Ashe, it's very interesting when looking at the win rate of the champion in relation to the spell use skill at level 2. Leveling E at level 2 actually has about a 1% higher win rate than taking Q, but it's only done in 8% of games. If you don't have the level 2 jump on the enemy and are not looking to fight, taking E level 2 and scouting the enemy jungler is really underrated. Of course, in most games you should be pushing for that too, leveling Q and looking to fight, but for whatever reason, if you just lose control of lane early on, taking a point in E at level 2 can be very powerful. Keep this in the back of your mind and don't just autopilot level up Q at level 2 from now on. Definitely look to prioritize your ban on a meta hard engaged champion right now, like Jarvan or Hecarim when picking Ashe. The core build is a Kraken Slayer Rush into Trinity Force second and Hurricane third. Roll with Lethal Tempo as the Keystone Rune, followed by Presence of Mind, Bloodline, and Coup de Grace. Optimal secondaries are Biscuits and Approach Velocity. Making his way back into meta in a big way over the past patch has been Blitzcrank. 13.17 changes have panned out extremely positive, and he's been given even more relative strength due to the Even Shroud nerfs. So many melee supports have fallen in power as a result of the Even Shroud nerf, but since Blitz is thriving with Everfrost, he's heavily outperforming. Many pros have been liking the Everfrost Rush even before the 13.17 mana scaling was added to Blitz R, but it's finally catching on in solo queue now. Capitalizing on hook plays is just way more reliable with the added damage and root that Everfrost provides. With Ezreal currently one of the most popular ADCs for solo queue, he's a really good ban if you plan on picking Blitz. A tip that applies to all supports, but even more so when you're picking Blitz, is to be proactive around roam timers and don't just sit in lane on autopilot. Has your ADC just taken a recall and there's nothing for you to do in lane? Look to hover mid for a roam opportunity, or if a fight breaks out. Are you coming off a reset and your ADC is also in base with you? Don't just run straight back to bot, run towards mid. See if there's a play to be made, and if not, make your way back to bot. If you're walking straight back to bot lane after every single recall, you're just flat out playing support wrong. The standard rune page for Blitzcrank is Glacial with Hex Flash, Biscuits, and Cosmic Insight. Run Bone Plating and Unflinching for secondaries. For some odd reason, Riot thought Thresh was in need of a buff for 13.18, so he jumps into the top 3 for support. The reason it's odd to see Thresh buffed is because he's already been the most popular solo queue support for a while now, with a pretty respectable win rate, so for him to get buffed over other struggling supports is a bit strange. Nevertheless, 2 of the classic hook supports will be dominating the solo queue meta here in 13.18. We mentioned this tip for Thresh in our recent video on 10 champions that everyone plays wrong, and it's related to the champion's skill order. If you're still maxing E out second on Thresh, look to try out W instead. W max second Thresh players win a whole 3% more than those who go E. In the mid game, having W maxed out is generally going to be more valuable than E, because a shorter cooldown on W is more impactful than extra damage and a lower cooldown on E. Ban-wise for Thresh, Morgana is a solid option as her black shield makes catch plays much more difficult to pull off. Standard core build build for Thresh is a Locket Rush into Zeke 2nd and Knight's Vow 3rd. Take Glacial for the Keystone rune with Hex Flash, Biscuits, and Cosmic Insight. Bone Plating and Unflinching are for secondaries. This support has been exceptionally strong for multiple patches now, and rounding out the top 3 is Zyra. There's no better support right now when it comes down to a damage-oriented carry. With all the changes to ADC this patch, Ashe play rate should only continue to rise, giving even more power to Zyra, as that duo is super nasty. When you're looking to poke in lane with Zyra, don't just throw out your Q randomly off cooldown. Have some purpose behind using the spell. You should get in the habit of only throwing out skill shots when the enemy ADC is going for a last hit. This is especially powerful in cannon waves, as you either completely zone the enemy off of taking the cannon, or if they go for it, you're pretty much guaranteed to land your poke, since when the enemy last hits, they are forced into a fixed position for a split second, making it way easier for you to line up your spells. The core build for Zyra consists of Liandry's Rush into Rylai's 2nd and Zanya's or Demonic Embrace 3rd. It's the supports with strong catch power who Zyra can be more vulnerable against, so using your ban on Rakan or Blitzcrank is a good idea. Comet is the best Keystone rune with Mana Flow, Transcendence, and Scorch. Run Taste of Blood and Relentless Hunter for secondaries. Alright guys, before we wrap this up, let's tell you a little more about SkillCapped. So, we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and think that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's like a gym membership guaranteeing you'll get ripped. Your local gym would go bust if they offered that, right? Not us. We've offered this for years because our service really does work. It works so well, in fact, that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium league guides on the internet. We add over 20 videos a week, with over 1,600 guides curated into over 100 courses no one can compare. We've also sent Challenger players into ELO Hell 714 times and counting, where they commentate how to carry live. They also respond to all questions asked. Sign up today for as little as $6.99 a month if you are serious about improving. So that's going to wrap everything up for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.